With a smug grin, Arthur points directly at Vikir, exposing his true legendary name to everyone, Vikir van Baskerville. The surrounding crowd instantly goes wild, their classmates losing their minds in sheer disbelief as they realize they are standing right next to a direct scion of the legendary Ironblood sword family. Grenouille's brain is completely short-circuiting at the revelation. After spending all this time looking down on Vikir as a low-born commoner, he now realizes the boy is actually the heir to one of the most terrifying families in the entire empire. He knows the Baskervilles are the absolute apex predators of this world, famous for their cold-blooded beast-slaying combat styles, which explains exactly why Vikir has been moving like a straight-up cheat code since day one. Arthur, however, isn't finished playing detective and smugly details how he connected the dots, recalling a warrior wielding a beast-like crimson aura before they were dragged into the abyss, a warrior who wore a highly distinct inverted pentagram pendant around his neck. Letting out his best villainous laugh, Arthur asks Vikir if he really thought he could hide such a massive secret forever. While Vikir remains silent, his face shrouded in shadow as he simply lets the snake ramble. The other students, including a bewildered Grenouille, are completely lost, trying to figure out what kind of bizarre fantasy Arthur is spinning in the middle of a literal death trap. Yet, as Grenouille glances down at Vikir's dark red sword, a chilling realization washes over him, and the monstrous insane strength he just witnessed suddenly makes perfect, terrifying sense. Before the drama can escalate any further, the system loudly announces that the current trial has officially ended with 67 survivors, warning that the entire zone is about to collapse into the abyss. Even with the ground literally tearing itself apart beneath their feet, Arthur doesn't lose his smug attitude for a second, casually gesturing to Vikir that while time is short, he is a reasonable guy who doesn't ask for much. He smiles greedily and pitches a dirty bargain. If Vikir hands over exactly half of the stat-boosting candies gathered from the S-rank monster, Arthur promises to keep his mouth shut and protect his identity. While red system warning messages flash all over the place and heavy stones begin to rain down around them, Vikir merely stands in stony silence. Arthur's smug expression instantly crumbles and he begins to sweat, clutching his chest in disbelief that his blackmail isn't working as he frantically asks if Vikir is really going to let him blab the secret to the world. Getting more desperate by the second, Arthur's eye twitches as he asks if Vikir's alternative plan is to slaughter him and the other 65 survivors to keep them quiet, to which Vikir simply tells his senior to go ahead and do whatever he wants. He casually states that it doesn't matter who Arthur tells, whether it is the students trapped here now or anyone else they might meet in the future. As the ground beneath them disintegrates into a blinding purple light, Vikir calmly tells Arthur to go ahead and run his mouth to his heart's content, leaving the senior to stare back in absolute shock. Amidst the flashing red warning screens of the collapsing floor, Vikir flashes a menacing, crimson-eyed grin, mockingly telling Arthur that if cheap blackmail is his only play, then he really has nothing on him. Pushed past his limit, Arthur grinds his teeth in fury, his face contorting in absolute rage as he screams out the name of the Night Hound, just as the portal forcefully swallows them all. Soon after, the system confirms they have officially cleared the 3rd floor and are now plunging deep into underground floor 4, the island of the Black Sea. The desolate ruins of the academy are suddenly replaced by a dark, stormy landscape where twisted bone-white trees loom in the darkness, completely smothered in thick, sticky spider webs. A massive, jagged rocky island rises out of a churning pitch-black sea beneath a sky flashing with eerie green lightning, confirming their grim arrival on the 4th floor. Waking up on a dark, sandy beach next to the crashing waves, Vikir lies there completely relaxed, while his living pendant, Decarabia, hovers over him and nervously asks if he has officially given up on keeping his secret identity under wraps. Decarabia frantically explains that if Vikir let Arthur go because he was counting on its magical powers, he has made a massive mistake, admitting that while it can manipulate memories, that is not its main gig, and in its currently weakened, restricted state inside this cursed tree, wiping the minds of an entire crowd is physically impossible. Puffed up with frustration, Decarabia floats around, demanding to know why Vikir didn't just silence Arthur on the spot, even if it meant taking his life right then and there to protect the secret. Decarabia then stares deeply at Vikir as a new theory forms in its mind, prompting it to ask if perhaps he never actually cared about hiding his true identity from the very beginning. Vikir doesn't say a single word in response, keeping his poker face locked tight as the persistent pendant presses him for an answer. Putting 2 and 2 together, the pendant realizes Vikir openly flaunted his legendary Baskerville swordsmanship, flexed his monstrous power, and didn't even lift a finger to silence the witnesses, meaning there can only be one logical explanation. Dekarabia realizes Vikir is deliberately preparing for something massive, and surprised by this calculated move, the pendant notes that its contractor actually has a sharp mind, prompting Vikir to casually remark that the little eye isn't completely clueless after all. Deeply impressed, Dekarabia knows that a ruthless, calculating player like Vikir would never make such a flashy mess and leave a blackmailer alive unless he had a master plan in place. Although the pendant admits it has no clue what this grand preparation actually is, it decides to drop the subject for now as Vikir simply brushes the dark sand off his uniform and gets ready to move. Turning his attention to the dark horizon, Vikir listens as Dekarabia explains that this watery abyss is a fragment of the Black Sea, one of the 5 major oceans of the underworld. However, as Vikir scans the shore, he notes a major contradiction. There shouldn't be any islands in the Black Sea at all. Staring at the twisted white bark forest, Vikir realizes that this island must be another stolen piece of a foreign world that has been absorbed by the tree. Dekarabia confirms his theory, explaining that the demon Amdusias is a world absorber that wanders through different dimensions, literally ripping out pieces of various worlds and stitching them together like a twisted patchwork quilt inside the abyss tree. The pendant warns that when Amdusias swallows these worlds, their native creatures are dragged into the tower as well, acting as unwilling residents or competitors, meaning they might have to deal with inhabitants who have been stuck here for who knows how long. Vikir's eyes narrow as he processes this grim detail, realizing that this island of the Black Sea was completely absent from the future memoirs of his past life. Entering this uncharted, highly unpredictable territory, he steels himself for whatever insane mission the floor throws next. Suddenly, Vikir freezes as a sudden sensation catches him completely off guard. He collapses straight onto the sand, struggling to breathe, which causes Dekarabia to panic and frantically ask what on earth is happening to him. Vikir slams his hand into the ground, trembling as a wave of pure agony washes over him, his throat parched with an insane, bone-dry thirst that makes it feel as though his body is turning to dust. Just then, the glove on his hand starts pulsing with a menacing red glow as the system confirms the cause. His Beelzebub gauntlet has finalized its 3rd slot, absorbing the S-rank core of the Bloodwater Plantain Lily and granting him its passive trait, Extreme Drought. He realizes the blade must have secretly feasted on the giant plant monster's corpse on the previous floor, and although an S-rank beast is highly nutritious, the sudden side effect of its drought-inducing power is completely overwhelming his physical body. Just as he is about to pass out from the intense dehydration, a distinct dripping sound catches his attention, and looking up, he spots a thick, dark red liquid dripping from a nearby branch. Desperate to quench the fire burning in his throat, Vikir scrambles toward a bizarre, fleshy red tree, quickly catching the dripping red sap in his hand and licking it, desperate for any shred of moisture. Leaning against the massive red trunk, he finally catches his breath, feeling alive again as the mysterious red liquid completely cures his intense dehydration. Glaring down at his glowing blade, Vikir gives Beelzebub a stern warning, telling the demonic weapon that if it keeps greedily absorbing hazardous skills that trigger these random side effects, they are going to have a serious problem because this crosses a major line. Dekarabia watches him closely and offers a warning of its own, explaining that the red sap dripping from the abyss tree's branches has a strict consumption limit, and drinking too much of it will let the corruption take over, turning him into a monster. Stepping back quickly to examine the massive structure, Vikir realizes this is a direct branch of the abyss tree, marveling at how the colossal, parasitic roots of the demonic tree have managed to stretch all the way into this dead, dried-up forest of another world. Suddenly, Vikir's red eye gleams as his senses pick up a rustling sound in the dead forest behind him, and before he can move, a rough, hostile voice barks out demanding to know who he is and who gave him permission to steal their hard-earned sap. 2 muscular, spear-wielding men step onto the dark sand in a fury, shouting that it was supposed to be their turn to drink the tree's juice, but as they get a closer look at Vikir, they suddenly freeze upon realizing he is a complete stranger. The leader of this beach gang walks over to investigate, and the lackeys quickly report that a newcomer has arrived, pointing out that his uniform is incredibly clean and indicating he must have just landed on this floor. Hearing them address the man as their leader, Vikir keeps his guard up while the smug boss steps forward with a grin, casually asking where he came from. Leaning in close, the man mockingly asks if Vikir is just another commoner like the rest of them. Wondering aloud if Vikir is instead one of those high and mighty nobles, the man tightly grips a set of heavy, rusted iron chains and shakes them loudly, causing Vikir's heart to stop as a wave of absolute shock washes over his face. With a violent yank, the boss pulls the chains to reveal three heavily bruised, blonde-haired young men wearing heavy iron slave collars around their necks, which completely blows Vikir's mind. These chained-up, defeated slaves are none other than his younger siblings, the legendary Baskerville triplets.